Hey, good morning. Welcome to Liberty on Caffeine. This is Will Detmering and Jeff Harper. I'm the Porcupine Pundit. We'll see if Matt Wobble is able to join us today. He may not be able to get in. I'm not sure. But today's show, we're going to be talking about a little bit about what's going on into the future. We've had a president that's done something unprecedented in our history, which is signing a barrage, an absolute inundation of executive orders starting out his term. And so we are going to take some of those things that he's written, some of the things that are going into the committees or coming out of the committees in the House and the Senate that may be coming into law, and how they're going to be affecting our future and living in today's United States as we have it standing right now. And with that, we're going to go on with our intro.
We want to get it on because we don't get along. We want to get it on because we don't get along.
What up? What up? Oh, yeah. Well, here I stand with the mic in my hand, and I will pray to the Lord. I do the best that I can, 'cause in a world where possession answers questions of a man's word, but we all have the same nature. So I'm sticking around, and I'll be dropping it down. I'll be kicking my sound just like a smoke. Never quit because it makes my family grow. I want you to help me out of this one more time, and I say, can you help me? Can you help me get the hell out of here? Can you help me? Can you help me get the hell out? One for the money and two for the show. Three to get ready to bust down your door. And it's the one for the money and two for the show. Three to get ready to bust down your door. And then the boom, boom, pack of my crews got your back. Never ever quit, people hitting like a trap. With the boom, boom, pack of my crews got your back. Never ever quit, people hitting like a trap.
Good morning. Sorry we didn't have the volume pumped up a little bit on the intro. How are you doing this morning, Jeff?
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, doing pretty good. I mean, it's been a little bit of an off morning, I think, for everybody. I went out for an early morning walk with the dog and ran into some people, talked to them today, and I don't know, for a February 6th, everybody seems to be a little bit off kilter. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just living in 2021 right now. But hopefully we can get that all squared away. How's your week been?
Oh, it went pretty well. I do suffer from depression, and I actually woke up today feeling pretty good compared to normal. So while everybody else may not be having a good February 6th, I am, so I'm happy about
Fantastic. I'm glad to hear it.
Well, thank you.
All right. Well, our opening foray into today's show is going to be a question on energy in view of the following pipeline shutdowns and coal mining restrictions and some other things going on with Green New Dealing. What is your take on what will happen in U.S. energy sector in the next 4 years, much less the next year?
I see us putting a moratorium on drilling. There's already a 60-day moratorium on drilling on federal land. I see us going back on dependence from other countries for our energy supply. And I see that the Green New Deal, when introduced to Congress, the supporters, the creators of it didn't even vote yes. And after the fact, the bill's sponsor, Ocasio-Cortez, went on national television to say this wasn't meant to be passed. It was a symbolic bill. Well, now it looks like they're actually going to make it a reality.
Mm-hmm.
And I've studied this topic in the past, um, looking for clean, cheap, renewable energy because that's the holy grail of energy. And whoever finds it's going to be the next Rockefeller if they try to profit from it. Um, and understood that only 4% of our energy is actually alternative energy sources, and that includes hydropower, geothermal, wind power, nuclear, and solar. So if we stop our oil, how are we going to support the other 96% of energy we use?
Well, that's true. Uh, my take
The,
also. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, the best option that we have at this point in time, due to technological limits and usable limits of other forms, is nuclear fusion, which has no byproduct. There is a multinational lighter tokamak nuclear fusion reactor in France that is the prototype for commercial one. It's been delayed decades and doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. However, if we do manage to harness the power of nuclear fusion, we will not only have a clean, renewable, inexpensive energy source, we will also have a much more powerful energy source than we've ever harnessed before, and that will also give us more opportunities in science and technology. So I really see nuclear fusion as the only viable alternative, and it's still not something that can be done today.
Yes. Well, I want to go out on a limb and also say that we're going to see the rise of OPEC coming in. And good. Here comes our good friend Matt Wobble. Matt, how are you doing today?
Sorry, a little technical difficulty. Sorry, I'm running late. How are you guys?
Hey, we're doing well. Actually, our good friend Jeff is having a fantastic day starting out.
Oh,
How about you?
good morning.
How are you doing today, Matt?
I'm hanging in there, I guess.
Okay. Well, just to catch you up, I'm going to bring you in on the first question of the day, which is in view of the pipeline shutdown and coal mining restrictions, what do you think will happen with U.S. energy sector, the U.S. energy sector in the next 4 years, even starting in the next year?
Boy, they're going to have to either go galt or get hurt bad. Man, I think they really need to push their individual governors for individual state nullification. I think a good place for that would be in South Dakota, because that particular governor doesn't take flack, and she does push back. And also, I believe South Dakota is a place where there's a lot of new energy being discovered. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to find out, but it's not going to be without consequence. That's for sure.
Well, my prediction is that we're going to see the rise of foreign intervention in energy pricing. OPEC is going to be come rising out again, become powerful. We pretty much made it a toothless tiger in the last 4 years, and I think it's going to be coming roaring back, and with a vengeance. I think they're going to be angry because of our independence, and they're not being able to manipulate the price per barrel of raw oil. And now they're going to be put in the catbird seat, and I think they're going to come back, and they're going to want retribution, financial retribution.
There is one thing to consider, and that's the fact that OPEC oil, being in the form it's in, is much cheaper to remove from the ground in the first place, and not by a little bit, but by a significant margin. So they already have an economic advantage on producing crude oil or extracting crude oil, and to limit our production only increases the gap between our prices and theirs. So it's definitely harmful to us all the way around.
Yeah. I think what we've done is that we have, on an economic, or I should say, on a fuel dependency sense, completely surrendered and disarmed ourselves for this new global war that will be waged economically against us. That's just my prediction on this whole thing. Just as we're talking about economy, I'm going to go into our second question. Is, in view of the monetary policies espoused by the Democratic Party, especially during the run up to the elections, and they had their own in party debates. It was terrifying and laughable at the same time, but it was more terrifying because they got their person elected. With that in mind, what do you think will happen with the U.S. economy and the markets, and, well, even our monetary situation? How much the devaluation of the dollar is going to happen in the next year or 4 years? Matt, why don't we kick it off with you?
Don't know. I mean, drawing on all my experience as a day trader making millions of dollars a day, actually, no clue. I know that a rising tide raises all boats, but we see the opposite of that when we drain some of our lakes. And I think the best way to study economics is to kind of take a look at it from the micro level. If it was the three of us on an island, and one of us was doing something destructive, the idea that a hurricane or tornadoes somehow increases the economy. Well, I mean, maybe it does for roofers, maybe it does for house rebuilders, maybe, but it really doesn't even for insurance companies. It does for the people that are making something off of the destruction. But the broken window fallacy is a fallacy. And the idea that we could do something that is clearly against our own self-interest, like stop drilling for oil, that kind of stuff, and somehow not all suffer some consequence of it is ridiculous. But it is actually understandable when people have studied the idea of Keynesian economics, which frankly is an oxymoron, because if you're a Keynesian, you don't know squat about economics, right? So in the free market economics, Austrian economics, we study in Hazlitt's book, Economics in One Lesson, that the one lesson can be reduced to one sentence, and that is, what's good for the economy is what's good not just for one time, but for a long amount of time, and what's not good just for one group, but for all groups. And when I talk to my friend in Venezuela, he explains that Venezuela can best be understood by, if you can do the worst economic thing that the masses think is good, and here let's talk about raising the minimum wage, something similar to that, and then do that over and over and over and over again. That's the perfect way that you destroy the world's seventh richest country in a matter of 10 years. And that's what they did. We need to learn from their mistakes, not repeat them.
Okay. Excuse me. Jeff, what do you have? What's your take on the future?
Well, I see us regressing to the Obama era, where Biden was vice president, and we had no year with more than 3% GDP. We had economic experts saying that the country would never see above 3% GDP again. We had more small businesses closed than open during a single year for the first time in history, and it happened twice. Obama stood up and said, how's Trump going to bring back jobs? Does he have a magic wand? They are increasing theft by increasing taxes, going to rework these trade deals that we have, which are going to be harmful to us because they make trade deals that are advantageous to other countries. Rejoining the Paris Climate Agreement is going to be a big cost and a big waste. We are actually coming out of a small ice age, and the Earth is naturally heating. That's why they lumped it in with the climate change, because they had a global disruption and renamed it 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Between trying to go to green energy, which is more expensive, increase taxes, which slows the economy, reworking these good trade deals to make them bad for us again, and all of the other economics that were present before Trump came in office, the results are already known because they were visible before. The fourth worst economy for any president ever served, and the first president to never see above 3% GDP. That's where we're headed back to. Hey there.
That's a little eye candy.
Yeah, we had somebody sneak into my office and say, "I want to be on the call." So that was Emily
Good.
Grace.
You're very lucky. Unfortunately, I have no children, and I think it's the biggest blessing a person could have in their lives.
Matt has a brood of beautiful children. That's one thing for certain. Well, my comment on the looking at the economy, yeah, I think the Fed already has made overtures that they're going to be tightening the purse strings, that they're not going to be able to help the administration going in the direction that they're going with printing up money, with giving out stimuluses, with forgiveness of student debts and loan debts that supposedly were abdicated and secured by the lenders to the lendees. All these things are things that even the Fed can't stomach, and they're going to tighten it up. I think we're going to see an increase in or a galloping increase in prices, not only in fuel prices, but we're going to see food prices, housing. I think the housing market is going to go in the opposite direction. I think we're going to see a huge drop in it in the housing market. There is no bubble to foresee. You think there's a housing bubble?
Yes. I think they're still lending to people that can't afford to pay.
Oh, okay. All right.
The same policies are repeating and another bubble's forming. To be
Okay.
honest, that's nothing compared to the bond and mortgage market. The mortgage market, what we're talking about, bond markets, worse off than that. And the Federal Reserve's actually buying unlimited amounts of both bonds and mortgages during this thing.
Oh, municipal bonds are crazy too, because they don't have any whatever taxes that they have been able to collect is bottomed out. Yeah. I think there's we're going to see more cities and small governments also going bankrupt. Myrtle Beach may be one of them. I don't know how many properties, $1 million properties, they can sell for hundreds of thousands. So
they'll find a way. Trust me.
Yeah.
In the long run, it's unfortunate that if you took all the zeros off and made the figures instead of trillions into the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands and used them as the budget for your home, you would have been bankrupt and on the street 50 years ago.
Okay.
The reason this quantitative easing is so important is to devalue the dollar so that when we pay back this money or even the interest on it, we pay a lower amount because the dollar is devalued. What hurts individuals, it hurts us as individuals, but helps the government continue to put us further in debt.
Absolutely.
Can I, Will? Can we at least touch on some alternate methods, some solutions? The 80-20 thing of spending time talking about solutions. When the dollar devalues, there are other things that we need to hang on to. This is the time when you invest in valuable metals, kind of like lead and brass. Right? Also, gold and silver, and even cryptocurrency. And I want to point out that this week so far, in the last 7 days, Bitcoin has gone up 27%. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to keep on climbing, but I saw it back. I spent $50 on it back when it was $622 per coin. And right now it's 40,800, and it keeps hitting brand new highs.
Yeah.
40,000. So if you bought $60 worth, it'd be worth 40,000 right now. 40,800.
Well, the big issue that we're going to face in this country with the devaluation of currency and the bankruptcy is that the paper is going to be worthless. And I can guarantee you that these hedge fund managers and everybody else have commodities set aside and other places beside this country to go. Because once that fiat currency is done, it actually has no real value anyway. And when it's worth even less than it is now, you don't want to be in this country anymore, man, because there's no going to be nothing. It will be just like Russia when they collapsed, and the people who owned the property after that were the people that could hold it. If you had a bigger force, then property was yours.
Right.
If you don't mind, and I like the fact that Jeff gives a very, very specific perspective on it. Sometimes I'm not intentionally trying to counter, but let me offer a positive perspective. In Germany, when they had hyperinflation, and they had to take wheelbarrows full of money just to buy food, right? I mean, just the crazy ideas, right? In a way, we are repeating some of the same mistakes. Printing money, devaluing money, and trying to print ourselves out of trouble, which is causing more trouble than it's solving. And that seems to be like the mantra of government. How can we solve a problem that we created in order to create a problem that's much worse, so that we'll still be in need when people go, hey, we need to run to government to solve this problem that government created? And they don't seem to think anything about the downward spiral. Well, in this case, we're not exactly 1930s Germany, because if we have alternative forms of currency, and I'm going to go back with cryptocurrency or silver or gold. The silver market has just been ridiculous lately, but in a good way. But what that tells you is when prices start spiking per dollar, the value of the dollar is going down. And when you're holding something of little value, the good idea is to real quick buy something that holds value better. Like Jeff was talking about, they have other assets, whether it's land or other things that hold value better. I honestly see it as a positive thing, that sometimes destruction can be a positive thing because it's a disruptor. And I think Bitcoin specifically, or other cryptocurrencies, are a strong disruptor of the market. And what would happen if government could no longer control the currency that everybody used every day?
Mm-hmm. They don't really control it now, do they? I mean, it's the Federal Reserve Bank. Will, didn't you post something a couple of weeks ago about Germany and quantitative easing and how they printed up the 4 quadrillion German francs, I believe it was?
Yeah.
Quadrillion, folks.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can get a lot worse, and they can print a lot more. But see, when the money's gone, even if you have an alternative, where are you going to spend it? What are you going to buy? You need commodities, and you need a place that's actually stable financially. And this is not going to be it. I promise you, anybody that can get the heck out when it hits the fan, they're going to be gone. So there's going to be nothing here.
So we should learn from not only the mistakes but the successes of, dare I say this, Venezuela. In Venezuela, they talked about how that they were going to add 2 zeros to their money. That's 100. That's not 100%. That's 10.
It's 100.
10,000% inflation. 100. So your what was $100 bill one day is now worth $1 the next. Okay, so they said we're going to add 2 zeros to it. And then right at the very last second, they said, no, we're going to add 5 zeros to it. And the first part wasn't even all that controversial, and which was scary. The second part just passed like people weren't paying any attention. So they basically devalued their money down to like literally a $10,000 bill is now worth $1. They literally turned the paper in their own country into worth less than toilet paper. Thankfully, they had soft currency, so they could use it as toilet paper. But that's all the value that it was. And so all of a sudden, people that had any monetary any money set aside in Venezuela were all of a sudden dirt poor. Well, the freedom fighters that I know that actually live behind that Iron Curtain had been doing something rather interesting. Their electricity was socialized, meaning you don't pay for it. You don't pay any more for it. It wasn't even a metered service like we have a water meter. It was literally you plug in and you're plugging into the electrical grid and the government pays for your electricity. So a bunch of really smart guys got together and they said, you know what, we're going to order a whole bunch of Bitcoin mining machines and we're going to plug it into the power. So they were literally taking socialist electricity and turning it into capitalist funds, right?
Yeah.
Now those guys are then able to spend it. And where would you spend it? Well, if you find somebody that doesn't have a Coinbase account or a Bitcoin account or a Bitcoin wallet, but they have a phone, you get them hooked up with one, and now they have it. And over time, the network grows as to what you would buy and sell with it. We would sell chickens and chicken eggs. Other people would buy or sell, hogs or their meat. And the thing is, it kind of takes the whole marketplace away from big business and puts it right back in the hands of anybody that can quickly transfer. And it's difficult to rob somebody of their Bitcoin, of their cryptocurrency, because you hold a gun to somebody's head and you say, give me all the money that's in your wallet. Well, right there, how am I going to do that? I'm not saying it's absolutely impossible, but it's very difficult to actually, it's not like you're traveling with a whole bunch of gold, silver, or cash. So I think that when we think absolutely nothing is going to exist after they devalue the dollar, there may be some people that don't think far enough ahead and they end up eating zoo animals. That happened in Venezuela. But hopefully we're not eating zoo animals or our pet rabbit. I don't like rabbit.
Yeah.
Blockchain technology keeps Bitcoin secure. If there are any loopholes in it, it's in the wallet applications that attach to it, and that's where they've been attacked in the past. The only issue with Bitcoin, now it's great that it's a private currency, that it's limited and won't be produced anymore because that keeps supply and demand. But in the end, there's nothing backing it except for people's belief that it has an intrinsic value. It's still a fiat currency.
That's not true.
What backs it?
Well, actually,
the algorithm actually backs it. But I understand where people
algorithm.
I understand where people understand the word algorithm to mean magic, unless they understand math. So I'm not going to argue whether algorithm is of value or not. What's interesting is the fact that back in 2013, there was already $8 billion in Bitcoin. And now if you want to multiply that number by what it's gone up, which is like 60 times, whatever that is, there is trillions of dollars in Bitcoin. So, I don't want to walk point either. I'd be like the last guy to say, let me walk point on this, because I know what happens to the guys that walk point. They're either the first ones in the minefield or the first ones that get shot. So I'm definitely not into bleeding edge technology, but this isn't 2009. So we're a little ways past 2009.
Well, I don't want to go completely on to describing or into a cryptocurrency discussion right now, if you don't mind. What I'm going to do is we've gone and we've talked about some of the real sectors, I guess the touchy-feely stuff that we've got where we can put our hands on to the energy and economy of our lives coming into the future. But now I'm going to run a PSA, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about the social aspect of what's going on, being the landscape of government and politics and media. So with that, I'm going to run over here. Sorry, I'm still getting used to some of the new ways of getting around here. Yeah.
Every 2 minutes, an American is sexually assaulted. Be the someone who gives their time. Be the someone who lends an ear. Be the someone who takes a step. This is Christina Ricci with RAIN. asking you to join the fight against sexual violence and volunteer in your community. Log on to RAINN.org, that's RAINN.org, to learn how you can be the someone.
This message brought to you by the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National.
Okay, welcome back. We're going to now jump into what the third question is going to be, and that is, how do you foresee mainstream media and social media changing or not in the next year to 4 years? Are we going to see a fundamental shift in what we can broadcast, what can be said, what could be done, and how is it going to be reflected, or how is it going to be manipulated by the broadcast mainstream media? I'm going to kick that one over to Jeff, starting out. What do you think, buddy?
Well, I'm currently serving 30 days in Facebook jail. So I've had my account for 11 years, and I had no strikes for 10 years and 1 month. In the last 11 months, I've had 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So they've definitely changed the atmosphere and what you can say and how you can say it, and not necessarily for the better. In fact, my last suspension didn't even have a comment or a reason. It was some kind of, I don't know, somebody didn't like something I said and it hurt their feelings, so they went and cried to Facebook. And this is only going to get worse. They started first with the conservative voices, and now they're saying they're getting rid of liberal voices, but they're not getting rid of all of them. They're getting rid of the more moderate liberal, the ones that were more like Kennedy instead of being more like Carter.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and what we have today is basically a trend that I don't see changing, because I don't see the courts doing anything. I mean, they wouldn't even hear cases on voter fraud with video evidence of 400 sworn statements, and so I don't see them doing anything to protect the people. And I see it only getting worse, and our options getting less. I think Parler CEO was actually fired 2 days ago, and they're going to be going in a different direction when they reopen, which is why they delayed their early February restart.
Matt, what do you have?
I'm sorry. You ask a loaded question, but it's a hilarious one, especially since this is my day 61 of a 60-day Facebook ban. And I'm not trying to one-up you, but after day 29 and a half, they gave me another 30. And so I fully expect that my account will be completely disabled before I have the chance to, what would we say, culturally cleanse it? Or try to, clean it up. And the only reason I do that is I had an audience of like almost 5,000, which is their top, where you top you out at 5,000. Hit that a couple years back. But I did find that MeWe does not have a limit. I have friends on MeWe contacts, they call them contacts on MeWe, that already are over 8,000. So I guess that's a good thing. Things are going to change. I think that for the great majority of people, unfortunately, they'll bend and they won't push back. I think it's going to take an organized effort of exit the system for people to get more and more comfortable with what most people call second tier. For instance, while there's 2 billion users on Facebook, MeWe only has, I think it's something like 5 million. But they added 2.5 million in just a couple of weeks. So the more that Facebook does this kind of stuff, the more that they're pushing people to an alternative source. The one thing that does concern me is that MeWe compared to Gab, MeWe is on Amazon servers, which means Amazon is still pulling the strings a little bit, at least in an influential way, saying you've got to do something to make sure that whatever. And because because of what they did to Parler. MeWe's got to be sitting here thinking, well, there are limits outside what we set. Gab, on the other hand, has created their own servers. And so I think hopefully Gab is showing MeWe the direction to go instead of MeWe looking at what happened to Parler and Amazon as the way to go. Because if you truly want to compete with fascist book, you need to stop being fascist.
Well, go ahead.
It seems to me that the big issue with MeWe is that even though there's fewer people, there are a lot of people that have already switched over that I know, and I have a difficult time locating them on that particular program. It seems like it's a lot easier to contact friends and find people on Facebook. And also, with the 2 billion people being on there, if you run a business and you advertise, you really can't afford to not be on Facebook or somewhere else that you have a larger audience to reach. So until these other applications become more populated, and you pretty much, especially running a business, you have to have it.
And so that's great, a great segue into if somebody is advertising on Facebook, there is no way in the world I'm going to do business with them. So I think it does work both ways. I think some people see that as a virtue signal, and I do see it as a virtue signal. I see people advertising on Facebook as the fact that they have no good virtue. Yay! So I'm not going to spend my money with them. So for us to stop, back to this. So, you've heard of Friday nights, women drink free at the bar. Well, ladies' night, if you're not actually paying for the service, then you are the product. And I'm tired of being Facebook's product. And so I'm not putting any more posts out there at all. I'm not going to add any content out there at all, other than this is where you find me, and it's not here anymore. Because I don't want to be that draw to any other liberty-minded libertarians or conservatives that want good information, because Facebook's not the place to get anymore. So I like the fact that Facebook has done all this censorship, because it's finally giving people like us, when you get a 30-day ban, I get a 60-day ban, it's forcing us out of our comfort zone. I would say is you have an Android, right? Probably?
Yes, I do.
Okay, The Android app on MeWe actually lost its search function, and so there is an update. You got to get the updated app so you can get your search function back. Yeah, I don't know where you're going to find anybody if you can't at least search their name. The other thing is, as crazy as it sounds, is it's incumbent on people like Joe Smith to find people like Detmering or Wavell, people with a unique last name. Are a lot easier to find, because if I'm looking up Joe Smith, because me and Joe Smith, we were tight on Facebook, man, and I want him on my MeWe group. Well, first thing Joe needs to do is put up his picture, because if you're going on there and you can't even see his picture, well, 1 out of 2,000 Joe Smiths it might be your friend, he might not. So how many are you going to add? And then it's up to Joe to help reach out to the people. So it is a big mess, but I think it's a very productive mess when you start removing the controls away from the Chinese Communist Party, which is exactly who is trying to control Facebook.
Well, you're right about that. But,
if you don't mind, I'm gonna weigh in on the subject too.
Please, my bad.
Yeah, no problem. When I started out in communications, we all became the students of McEwen. And the media is the message. And over the years, we've found out that wasn't the case. And it hasn't been the case. It's been that the message has been the media. And it's kind of flipped its way around. That being said, my fervent belief is that once they have chased off all of the unique, sane, reasonable, original voices from their platforms. And that's what they're doing. They're taking all the interesting stuff off, all the interesting people off, and chasing them off. That's what made their platforms popular. it gave people somebody to cheer. It gave people somebody to boo or hate. It gave some interesting perspectives that were there. It was a place it was a playground. They have taken that out. They have padded everything. It's not fun. They're going to make it more not fun, chase more people out. When they drive that down and people don't go, it's going to go the way of MySpace. It's going to die because once the people go, the money leaves with them. And there, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, in my opinion. That's where I think things are going to go, and it will go to alternative places. The other thing I predict is, yes, people like Gab that have started their own server farms and servers. I think that's going to be the big rise in social media, is people investing in hardware, people investing in getting their own servers. And that is the next thing that the government's going to step into, is trying to prevent and to control those servers. When that happens, then all of a sudden people like Bezos are going to shit their pants. Excuse my French on the social thing, but they're gonna find out that, holy crap, we're not going to be the guys that are controlling people. We're going to be the guys that are being controlled. And that's going to be the next thing. That is the big thing, is going to be trying to put controls on server farms, because everybody's going to start theirs up. I mean, if that's not what Trump's doing right now, I'm a fool. But I bet you $10 right now that that's what he is doing, is he's building up his own server farm network for doing broadcasting of all types. That's out there. Now, as far as the mainstream media goes behind it, they are going to have the worst 4 years in their lives. They have been enjoying this time of Trump bashing, but this next 4 years is going to be absolutely as abominable as the 8 years they had under Obama, where all they're doing is running around, ducking and covering. It was abysmal for them under the Obama administration, because they had completely, in my estimation, they had completely lost all their credibility. They lost their credibility with Aleppo. They lost their credibility with all of these other things that they had to go so extreme to cover up. And that's what this next 4 years is going to be like, in my opinion. That's how I see it coming about. If I'm wrong, that's going to be interesting to find out.
Well, first,
go ahead.
Amazon servers are their bread and butter. Amazon.com isn't that profitable. Mm-hmm. It's just there. As a matter of fact, a lot of Prime customers get their shipment for less than the cost, because it's just a service that they use to, I guess, keep people with them or whatever. But their money is from their server farms.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing is I don't pay for advertising on Facebook, but there are groups for communities. There's a community 3 or 4 miles from my home with 40,000 residents, and its own group on Facebook. The next town over has a group. The next town over has a group. The county has groups. Mm-hmm. I can drop my advertisements in there and reach the people, and I can't do that on other platforms. So I won't be using Facebook for my personal business as much, for interacting with other people as much. But from a financial and business standpoint, right now it's still a commodity that's valuable to the company, and I'll still take advantage of it, because it's still a necessity at this point in time. I wish it was different.
I think at this point in time it is, but I don't see that happening in the next 24 months. I think so many people are going to drop out of the communities, not really check in or click into Facebook, and because it's uninteresting. It's not going to have things of interest to people, and they're just. I mean, I've even shown or found that over the last few weeks, I don't check my Facebook as much or do as much on it. My posts certainly have gone down, because I have to post to so many different platforms, and I enjoy some of the other platforms even more, because more of the people that I enjoy seeing in my communities, like you and Matt, are not on Facebook because you're in timeout or whatever they call it. And so I want to communicate. I want to see what's going on in your lives and your families and what you're up to. I'm not interested in a lot of these other people that are still on. So therefore, I spend more of my time on Telegraph or MeWe or some of these other things that are out there. So going with that, we're going to change to the last question of the day, which is always the big one. How do you foresee government and the political landscape changing in this country in the next year to 4 years? And we're going to start this one off with Mr. Matt Waddle.
Very quick. Hang on.
Whoop, Matt. There you go.
It was kind of noisy back here. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
So I heard most of that. How is the government and political landscape, in your mind, going to change in this country in the next year to 4 years? Just to kick things, just to ignite things, I think we're going to continue to see things going in a more libertarian fashion, more libertarian minded. And I'm not saying going from left to right or right to left. I think it's going to go to more independence, more liberty, more economic freedoms, more freedoms in general, and being able to express one another. But and to go on back to you. Yes. Yeah. No. Here's this is good. This is good. Okay. So you know how in the last 4 years we've become much more polarized. Think of it like a dog bone. We were kind of an oval already. We've become much more of a dog bone. You have this group, and almost nobody in the middle. The one thing that I'm looking forward to is seeing a little bit more like this. As in, if you think of the triangle or the diamond, where liberty is at the top.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Okay. Where liberty's at the top is, I think we're going to see a polarization of statist versus the liberty-minded. I don't know that that's necessarily, I mean, I see it as a good thing as far as being able to know who's your friend, who's your enemy, that kind of thing. I like it when we have apps that help us avoid statist apps, that kind of stuff. And we really try, like becoming more agorist society. I think the more that government cracks down, the more that good people realize that government is not good. And when government is limited and doing mostly the right things and not harassing people, for not wearing a mask, not playing this stupid masquerade party, then most people are like, oh, well, Romans 13, we must obey the higher powers and all this stuff. But when government gets abusive, then the idea of civil disobedience, nonviolent civil disobedience, becomes more and more popular. I think this is the time we really have to speak up, speak out, and help organize not a mass resistance, but a mass exit. Because I think it's really different between exiting and resisting. Resisting is kind of staying in there and trying to fix things. I think we need to kind of remove ourselves as much as possible instead of trying to fix things. And I think that will, like when we talk about social media, the more we remove ourselves, the faster we make the other side implode. And I think it's important that we consistently remove ourselves from anything that is working against us. So where does that take us? I don't look for a political means for a fix, but I think economic means and free market means. We need to absolutely develop absolute hatred of things that disrupt natural market signals, and that goes as far as government-run schooling. It should all be free market schooling. We need separation between the state and the school. We need a separation between the state and the market. And if we can't separate the state from those, we need to put layers of protection so that we can go full agorist without worry of punishment.
Okay. Well, Jeff, where do you see the things with the government and political landscape changing in the next few years?
Well, I think we've already seen a little bit of it in the fact that you would normally have a rhino or a moderate elected after a more conservative president, followed by probably another of that type, or a left-leaning moderate, before you get back into the full-blown socialist like Obama.
Mm-hmm.
So this time around, we went straight from a socialist to a, I guess you would call him moderate because of his choices from COVID. I can't really call him a conservative. But then back to a full-blown socialist. So this is not, to me, and I've said it many times, this is not the beginning of the struggle. This is the end game. They're implementing the socialism that they worked 150 plus years to get to this point for.
Mm-hmm.
And over the next 4 years, all that's going to happen is that the government is going to become more tyrannical, and it's going to keep blaming the citizens like they did in D.C.
Yeah.
How can they not blame citizens for destroying private property, taking over entire blocks of cities, destroying and looting businesses? Those guys are okay, but if 20 people get inside the White House out of 1 million, then everybody that was there is a terrorist. So they're going to continue to push their social agenda, and they're going to continue to ruin us financially. And I'm not sure what the end game is other than to destroy Western culture completely so that there's nothing to resist the tyranny that's been resisted at least twice by this country. We saved the world twice from this stuff, and we're going to be facing it in our own country now?
Crazy. Well, with that note, we are going to take one last PSA break. When we come back, we're going to end our show with our 5 minutes of wide open, wild west open discussion, and then do a wrap up, and then discuss on what we're going to be doing for our following.
Braxton was diagnosed with choroid plexus carcinoma, a brain tumor. St. Jude is helping us put away our fears. We have an amazing team that fights for the best outcome for Braxton. He has the best chance here. I don't have to worry that how much is that bag of fluid going to cost me? Can I afford it to save my child's life? The donations, they're paying for me to live every day with my son, be stress-free, and enjoy every day with him. I wish there was a word bigger than thank you, more close to the heart, because thank you's not enough. They've given me hope. They've given me my son.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Finding cures, saving children. Learn more at stjude.org.
It's been a it's been a great show so far. I want to thank you guys both. We have 5 minutes of open discussion. We've had a lot of things that we've been sharing, from our ideas on cryptocurrency to all the things going on with social media to energy. We even had Lisa Bean Williams, one of our favorites, weigh in when we had the energy conversation, stating that lithium is not renewable. She's absolutely right about that. All the vehicles were electric right now. Lithium would be depleted in approximately 17 years. I actually saw it would be depleted in 8 years, but yeah, I agree with her. There are a lot of novel metals and so on that are extremely difficult on the environment, that have to be mined in China to get some of these electronics and these green, wonderful green energy things up and running. I also wanted to mention that James Godwin, one of my new friends that's joined us, I hope to have him on the show, bring him in on the panel. He seems to have some really interesting insights. He's another great Marine. You'll be interested in that, Matt. And he should have some things that he can bring into this. But I also wanted to mention that we were talking about, Jeff, I think you what, Jeff, I think you brought it up, about the storming of the Capitol and all the hoopla over it, not over the burning of cities and people's personal property and business properties. There's been a big blow up about AOC and her claiming how she was in danger of her life, but then come to find out she wasn't in the Capitol at the time.
Oh, and the knocks on the door were from police trying to make sure she was safe. She was scared of her own security.
And she was in an office building 3 blocks away.
With security pounding on her door to protect her, and she's hiding under her desk in fear for her life.
Oh, no. She said she ran into a bathroom or something like that.
Well, I was being a general statement, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's still the whole point is, it was an obvious lie in order to garner some kind of emotional support from people who don't use logic or reason.
There you go.
And she got caught.
Yeah. Well, somebody else had brought up how easy it is for her to go on and fabricate these lies and keep a straight face while doing it. And they pointed out the other person who's really good at doing that is Biden himself, who got booted out of the electoral process back in the 90s for his repeated fabrications and theft of other people's intellectual property during the election.
Absolutely. This is his, fourth attempt total?
Yeah.
And I don't think he's had any kind of success or major support in any of the other runnings that he's had. And I just don't see how a person who's been in the politics for 50 years and really done nothing beneficial be considered a good candidate for president.
I know some people are going to be mad at me, but it's like the old adage about the hooker that stays on the same corner for the longest. or broken clock is right twice a day.
Analog. Those digital ones don't work that way.
Good
So
point.
yeah, I would really love to see, and I agree with you on the technology or the services changing, that these social media programs that are popular today will see an exodus. There will be something to replace it sooner or later.
Mm-hmm.
So far as being dominated by a particular philosophy and losing support due to that. If you look at Twitter, I would have to say that for the majority of leftist site with a lot of radicals on it, and they seem to still be pretty successful. Although they did have to destroy their competition to maintain that success. So something will come along and replace these guys eventually.
True. Matt, any thoughts?
Yeah, I would want to add real quick. I think
Just a second, I'm sorry.
you want to focus on changing hearts and minds of the average Trump supporter. If we really stopped and thought about it, if the average Trump supporter actually supported liberty, nobody would be wearing these ridiculously stupid face diapers or slave muzzles, however you want to best refer to them. And if 47 million people absolutely said no way, and the percentage of people that voted for Trump were actually walking in grocery stores saying, "You're not going to muzzle me," then it would already been over by now. But the psyops is actually being helped along by the same people that it's hurting, because they're not willing to actually stand up for what is right or even do the research, and they're willing to be spoon-fed by the media, and they're willing to just go on feelings instead of actually dig a little deeper. Because in a very sad sense, the American people are much too much like sheep than I had hoped at my age. I thought along the lines of 1776, I knew we weren't anywhere close to there, but I was hoping we were closer to the attitude of the mid to late 1800s, where we would still want to protect our territory or something to that effect. But my goodness, not feeling good about it. But the big shift, the big mental shift has got to be away from the idea that the slave mentality is some strong man is going to come save us. Well, the free mentality is I don't need a president to rule and run my life. And yet it was interesting how many people with TDS, and what I mean by Trump derangement syndrome is there's both a positive and a negative there, but they're both really negative. People that are so into people worship that they hate his guts, or people so into people worship that they love him and he can do no wrong. The idea that a strong political leader can either do no right or do no wrong is as ridiculous as if you put that on any other person. The truth is we need to not be focusing on what they're doing, but on what we're doing. And we need to lead by example. We need to lead by example by opting out as much as we can and helping others learn how to opt out as much as they can. And I would say the last thing is this. Don't call the police. Numbers like 911 are a lot less effective than numbers like 357, 556, 762. There's a lot more effective way of dealing with things than getting government involved. They're not supposed to be there to do that. And when people demand that they do more than what they're supposed to do, eventually they take that, and you can never get it back.
There's actually been a change from SCOTUS. I don't think it was a ruling on a court case, but they have changed the rules on qualified immunity for police. Used to be that there had to be a case law established showing that that was a violation of the rights in order for it to be seen in court. But I believe a gentleman who spent several years in prison in feces-covered cells and with other atrocities, and the guards weren't considered, the police that were the prison weren't considered capable of losing their qualified immunity because there was an existing case that covered that specific instance. So they've changed it to where qualified immunity will be easier to challenge on the police force. My concern with police is the militarization that they've gone through, and there's hundreds of thousands of videos on Facebook or on YouTube and other sources today that show the corruption in the department, the complete lack of understanding of laws and training. This is not the police force we had in the 1980s, folks. This is a completely different animal. I think in the 70s or 80s, when SWAT was created, they ran 30 raids a year. Now they're up to 30,000.
Wow.
And that's a big difference. Serving warrants on the wrong homes and shooting people for defending their homes. We had an $8 million lawsuit in Myrtle Beach that got settled, the largest in the state for that, with one police officer losing his qualified immunity and $3 million personally. We've got people in just about every state and county going through the exact same thing. So that's why I say don't call them. 10 minutes to arrive, they're not going to arrive till after the fact anyway.
Yeah.
Hello?
Well, you're absolutely right.
I have a big issue with the training for police and their interactions with citizens, especially since 9/11, because they now consider every individual that they contact a possible threat to their lives, which means that they're armed and a threat to mine. And I don't like that.
That's true. Okay.
I say recently, back in 2015.
Oh, Matt, were you trying to talk? There you go.
Yeah, my bad. Back in 2015, there was an article about civil asset forfeiture. In 2015, the curve has now surpassed that the police actually steal more than do traditional robbers. And so, it used to be when I was little, we'd play this game called Cops and Robbers. And nowadays, my kids are going to have to ask me who's going to be on the second team. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because they're stealing, right? And so that form of legalized plunder is actually much worse than any other theft because not to sound like Ghostbusters, but who are you going to call? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
are you going to call when they're stealing from you?
And it's
True.
not just the fact that they take your property, it's the fact that you have to go to court and fight to recover your property. You're guilty until proven innocent. And these were designed to stop, large drug dealers from keeping the assets after being busted. And they're being applied to people who fail to use their right-hand turns. Well, probably not that, but they're being used on individuals and small. The RICO Acts were created to fight organized crime, and they're being used on two street-level dealers who happen to work together to sell pot to their friends. Those people are being brought up on RICO charges as well,
Yeah.
and having their assets taken. It's beyond reasonable. The government is broke, it's bankrupt, and it's desperate to take every dollar it can from everyone. Dude, I went to the DMV the other day. If you want to use a credit card, there's a processing fee. Well, what do I pay all my taxes for? I paid my property taxes online and got charged $4 convenience fee.
Yeah.
That's real convenient, folks. I put in all the information into an automated system, and you charge me $4 for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
So what's wrong with that drug dealer? Isn't all of his interactions voluntary? And if all of those purchases and sales are voluntary, why are we trying to confiscate the wealth of a businessman who's done everything in a voluntary fashion? It goes back to prohibition. Prohibition didn't work in the Garden of Eden, so why does the U.S. government think it could work?
well, we've had a multi-trillion-dollar, multi-decade war on drugs, and the addiction rate when it started was 1.3%. The current addiction rate for the population in the United States is approximately 1.3%.
Well, these are all great things. We've gone way over our 5 minutes on it, but I do want to say that next week we're going to be addressing healthcare, education, and other services. These are not rights, folks, but equal access to quality education, quality healthcare, and quality services are your rights. That's going to be our subject for next week. I'll get some information out to you fellas during the week. We'll do some promotion, and we're also going to be talking about memes and other things. People, if you want to have a subject, feel free to put it up on our website, our Facebook pages, or any of our other social media pages, and we'll be happy to address them. If you have direct questions, go ahead and send it to our email, info@porcupinepundit.com, or any of the other ways that you have to contact us. Visit our webpage at porcupinepundit.com. Buy some of our swag. Support us in any way you can. We would love it. It would help us immensely in different ways. And we hope to see you next week back on Saturday at 10:30 with Liberty on Caffeine. Take care, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.